Hello and welcome to a very special time of sharing. I am here with two good-looking young people. They happen to be married. They each have their own separate ministries, which they blend together. So we've got a lot to talk about. They've come from two fairly diverse backgrounds, yet God has brought them together in ministry. And as I said before, a good-looking couple, talented couple. And I personally like to see young people who have enough stuff to be attractive to the world, yet they've dedicated all that they have, all that they are, to Jesus Christ. So we're going to talk to Laura and Ernie. They are husband and wife. She of Laura Williams Ministry and he of New Creation Ministries, separate ministries which have been brought together by marriage and by love. Guys, thank you for coming here.
No, really appreciate you having us on here today.
Yeah. This is going to be fun. And I want to start with you because Laura's walk to today is a little different than yours. Yours has a little more drama, shall we say.
Yes.
Just a little more drama. And then I want to kind of bring you both together because you're doing some great stuff for the Lord. Laura, I will start off by giving the punchline. You're a beautiful singer. You've been to 3ABN. My old stomping grounds, and you're here at Secrets Unsealed, so we're happy to have you.
Thank
and
you.
Listen to you just a little bit as you've been singing. God has gifted you, and thank you very much for lending your talents back to the Lord. But Brother Ernie.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we need to talk to you just a little bit. Did you grow up in a Christian home?
I did not grow up in a Christian home. Not at all.
Give me some sense of the flavor of your home growing up.
It's a Hispanic family. I'm adopted, so I was taken from my biological mother. She was an addict for a long time, methamphetamine problems. But flavor of her home is just, I don't know. She was a single mother, 18, 2 kids, putting herself through college. It's kind of a blur because I was so young, but lots of laughs, lots of music, and family gatherings is very important to my family. So all around, good, solid atmosphere, just without Christ-centered things and without spiritual things in the home. Yeah.
At what age were you when you were adopted?
I was 2.5, I believe. At least that's what I've been told. I
So
don't know.
you don't really have a strong memory of your biological mother, of that whole portion?
No,
of
not,
your
not
life?
when I was young, and I was adopted within the family. I didn't go through foster care or anything, so I know my mom and all that kind of stuff. But all that previous, up until at least till I was like 12 or 13, it's just blurry. I didn't know too much about my biological mother at the time.
Yeah, brothers and sisters.
Yes, on step side or my biological side.
Give me the whole
Well,
shooting match.
so
Yeah.
in total, it's four brothers and then 2 sisters. So between the 2 families, and I was the middle child in my biological mom's family, and then I am the oldest in my step family. So
Now that's 2 very divergent sets of expectations. Middle
Sure.
child, oldest child. That's
it was something.
very much so. Give me some sense of your life growing up, teenage years, you know, what you're moving into, what's going through your head, what's going through your heart.
Yeah, I gotcha. So those years, those teenage years, those adolescent years were hard for me, only because I was still trying to deal with the issue of being adopted. So it's something that kind of stemmed in elementary school, kind of not going home to a normal family, and then trying to rationalize to myself, like, why can't I have mom and dad, you know, that kind of thing. And then just as a Hispanic family, they're a lot darker than I am, so I'm this really pale Hispanic kid, you know, and just always felt very odd in my family. Never felt like I belonged or whatnot. So getting into those adolescent years and even to high school, like that burden just grew and grew on me, and I was just longing for some place to figure out where I belong and like figure out why I wasn't loved, you know, and try to fix this sense of trying to feel normal, but not find it in anything I was going through. So I didn't find it in the music I chose to listen to.
Now I want to ask you, was this more a consequence of your not being settled with it? Were you being treated well? Were you, or it just didn't settle well with you, this fact that you were sort of this alien in this situation?
Yeah, it was most definitely for me not coming to grips with it, but I think it was also just no one in the family really came to grips with it. Like there was still contention between my stepmom, my biological mom. If I ever brought it up, like it was very, very touchy subject. So all in all, I don't think there was any closure on anybody's side, except they knew that it was for my best benefit to be moved away, which I couldn't grasp as a young kid.
Now, you said one of the ways that you found sort of solace and dealt with it was in music. What other ways were you sort of coping with this?
No,
as
yeah,
best you could?
I was coping in all the bad habits that some people fall into, but that's like narcotic use, drinking, smoking, those kind of things, and just finding no solace in it. And I was just using that as a means to feel better, temporarily, but not really fixing the problem. Like that's a big thing I look on now, that I was trying to do all these things and it never got to the root of the problem. There was no closure there. Yeah.
You, though, were, I don't want to say a functioning drunk, though, because in our talking, you went to college.
Yeah.
While you were engaging in all these kind of habits, you were still pursuing your life. They didn't, they didn't disable you to the point where you couldn't function.
Right, but it was hindering any type of growth that was going on in my life. So I think I mentioned to you, when I was 18, I was like homeless for a while. And the friends that I was around and people that took care of me, because I did move house to house and all this type of stuff, they were good friends, and I'm glad they kept me accountable to a lot of things. I finished high school, I graduated, that kind of thing. But all in all, when I wasn't doing, the adult things I needed to do, I was just wasting time. Whether that's drinking, smoking, or using pharmaceuticals, that kind of thing. Like it was just kind of going nowhere, and I was content with that, just working and work and play, but not growing as an adult or anything. So,
did you have any kind of ultimate goal as far as where you wanted to end up in your life, or were you kind of just marking time day upon day?
Yeah,
day upon day?
That's exactly what it was. It was day by day, day by day. It just kept going on. Just no direction, no sense of direction at all. And I was fine with it, apparently, until I wasn't.
Well, praise the Lord. Meanwhile, Laura, you actually do get to talk. Okay, we don't want you to be a hood ornament. Adventist home growing up?
Yes.
And in what state?
Well, New Mexico, Montana,
Yeah.
Washington.
Yeah, as you were telling, you kind of hopped around a little bit. Give me some sense of your home growing up, your brothers and sisters?
I have a brother, older, but I didn't meet him until I was maybe 14 or 15. Yeah.
As you look back at your life as a young person, were you kind of a dedicated Adventist, kind of a struggling Adventist? How would you kind of rate yourself?
A total rebel.
So you had wilderness years, we call it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Walk us through that time.
Basically, by the time I was in my early teens, I didn't want anything to do with God, religion, anything like that. I just was all about wanting to do my own thing. I was tired of all the do's and don'ts and, different, like the drama that goes on and the hypocrisy and all that kind of stuff that I was seeing in those around me. I just didn't want anything to do with it.
There are several ways that kids are kind of pushed out of the church. One, because religion is forced on them. Two is because they see the dissonance between the people who espouse Adventism and how they're living, what they're saying, what they're doing.
Right.
And third, there are some who just don't want to be bothered.
Right.
Which of those three categories did you fall in?
All three.
All three. So you saw things that didn't make sense to you. You had things pushed on you that you didn't want. And number three, you just, I'm not into this. Yeah, so pretty much it. How did it manifest itself in your life? Particularly, let's look at your teen years.
My teen years, I just, I would get to the point, I went to extremes. I would get to the point where I just wanted so much nothing to do with it that it was hard for me even to touch a Bible. Like that's how much I was just stay away. And it had nothing, like, I don't want it to come across this had nothing to do with my parents. My parents raised me great. They did a great job. And they were at their wits' end with me. They didn't know what to do because I was so rebellious. But yeah, I remember the biggest thing was when I was about 14, I remember just taking off because I didn't want to pray. I felt that I shouldn't be praying if it wasn't coming from the heart. That was my big thing. It needed to be real or I wasn't going to do it. And I ended up taking off and in the middle of a snowstorm, barefoot and with a t-shirt. And I went a mile. I made it a mile.
Bless your heart. I'm glad that you put in this, my parents raised me great, because there are many parents who are pulling their hair out and they have young people who simply don't want it.
Right.
And a lot of them are questioning themselves, some with cause, others unnecessarily. What do we do? What didn't we do? What didn't we do? Sometimes you have a child who simply doesn't want it. They haven't internalized Christ for themselves. And there's very little that the parents can do other than pray and commit them to the Lord until the child gets it. And they've got to get it on their own because it's not caught, it's taught. You gotta get it. And at that point, it wasn't for you.
Right. And that's what my parents did. They would pray all night long sometimes. Yeah.
Bless their hearts. Yeah. You look back and you see the grief that you caused them, kind of makes you feel kind of sad.
Oh yeah.
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 Yeah. Meanwhile,
Oh yeah, me.
we're in college, we're going to school,
Sure.
but we're still kind of carrying on this secret life.
Yeah, so that was the tail end of being homeless for those 2.5 years. I moved back home to my parents' house. Ultimatum was get a job or go to college. So I did both. You know, I immediately got a job, found a college that accepted me. It was down here in Southern California, the Art Institute of California, and wanted to do game designing and stuff for video games and that kind of stuff. But not a very strong illustrator, not a good drawer. So they were like, well, what else are your interests are? And I was like, music. You know, I play guitar. And they're like, oh, we should take you to the studio and show you around. So I got into audio engineering.
Interesting, because I know any number of people. I've done some work in the industry. Game design is a very dark field.
It can be, yeah.
It can be. It can be. There's some really dark, negative stuff going on with game design. So if you're looking to come out into the light, game design may not want to be the choice that you want to take, because it can lead you. Not always, but it can lead you down some very dark areas. No. So you always had this music thing kind of going on.
So my older brother, he played guitar, and I think I was like 12 or 13 when I decided to ask my parents for a guitar. And they got me one. I think my grandmother bought me my first guitar, and I just, for like 3 years, I didn't know how to play it and whatnot. But my older brother would come over every once in a while, and he would just teach me like new things every once in a while. And yeah, it's just, that's where I found my solace. When I wasn't using self-destructive behaviors, I was always retreating back to playing music.
So guitar kind of centered you a little bit.
Yeah. It gave me some type of solace. And I carried that with me, you know, even through all my life, through high school, through middle school, through homelessness. Like, that was always something I can always go back to. And and I still go back to that thing. It's a wonderful way to cope with anything, really, because the power of music is just, it's powerful, you know.
Indeed. Okay, we hit the pause button. Meanwhile, back in Laura's life, you're still out being a rebel. And your parents are praying for you. Is anything happening that is beginning to change your mind, that you're thinking about changing your mind? I saw in your bio you went to Fountain View. And for those who don't know what Fountain View, talk to us a little bit about that experience. Tell us what the school was, because I've known Craig forever.
Oh, yeah.
And that whole Fountain View experience.
Yeah. So Fountain View was great. The first year I was there, I was the rebel.
Of course.
The second year I was kind of on the edge, more of a recluse. And junior year, recluse. Senior year was when I really started to embrace these things and want to reach out toward getting to know God better.
Now, for those who don't know what Fountain View is, walk us through what is Fountain View?
Okay, well, Fountain View is a boarding school in British Columbia, and they're known for two things: their music program.
Oh, yes.
And their market gardens, Carrot Farm. I spent a lot of time in the Carrot Farm. But the
and
music.
they produce beautiful Christmas videos.
Yes.
Yeah.
Lots of music DVDs we did. I got to be a part of a lot of them while I was there, and did a lot of touring. So that's where I really fell in love with touring and doing music like that. When
did it occur to you that you could sing?
That's another story in
itself. Well, that's a whole, How much time do we have?
Well, let's dip our toes in the water.
Well, when I started taking voice lessons when I was about 8 or 9, my mom, she pushed me in that direction. I did not want to do it. I hated singing. The first thing I did when I walked in that room is I told my teacher, I will never sing for you. I will not sing out loud. And well, obviously that didn't work out for me. But it took me a while. Actually, where I first fell in love with music is when I heard Josh Groban. That's when it started for me. And of course, my first interest was getting into secular music. But at Fountain View, that's when that started to change, because I really saw that the impact that sacred music has on people. I mean, we would see people's lives changed right in front of us, you know?
Yes.
Amazing testimonies. And I realized it's so much better to spend my time doing that kind of work, something that can actually have an effect on someone's life for eternity, rather than just music that maybe gives people a good feeling for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In short, you're starting to grow up and
Yeah.
get a little better life view.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
When, and this is one of those kind of high concept ontological questions we ask every now and again. When did Christ become real to you? That the whole, I'll use the term Jesus thing. When did that hit you? Because we're coming from rebellious. You're going to Fountain View, and you know Fountain View.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you can fake it at Fountain View, but you can't fake it for long.
Right.
There's too much going on. There's too many opportunities to meet the Lord. When did that happen for you?
Well, at Fountain View, I wasn't faking it. I was certainly looking for it. But a lot of the sense of spirituality, it can be based on your environment or your
Yes.
surroundings.
Yes.
So when I graduated, I thought that I had a strong foundation. But when I got out, I actually I realized that my faith was not as deep rooted as I thought it was. I was just beginning to grab hold of it. So when I graduated is actually when I went into like the darkest part of my entire life. It was right after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Describe that time.
That I ended up getting into a very bad, dangerous relationship. I ended up extremely depressed, very suicidal, all those kind of things. I can't give you like a specific moment.
Yes.
Like this is when I gave my life back to God, because God was working on me gradually all through that time. And but the thing that brought me around was the one thing I had been doing since my early teens, even when I didn't want anything to do with God. I don't know how our brain works sometimes, but I had been praying all that time for my brother every day. I wanted nothing more than my brother to give his life to God, even though I don't understand that. But but when I saw my brother give his life to God, and I got to watch the transition happen right in front of me, and see that my prayer was answered, that's when I really was like, I took hold of that.
Yeah. I am sure that you realized in retrospect that in praying for your brother, you were working on yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's how God works that thing out. You know,
Yeah.
you're locked down on somebody else, but at the same time, every time you lift a prayer for him, you are reasserting your connection with God for you. You came out of Fountain View with the intention of doing what?
I had my first invitation to do music before I graduated, to sing for a series. And so I immediately started doing that. And I worked through that dark point in my life while doing music full time. And it's kind of a tough balance, because we know that when you're doing ministry and things like that, you are held to a high standard.
Yes.
But at the same time, it was singing those songs over and over, and everything I said, in my speeches, in my concerts that I was doing, it was all for me. I was talking to myself the entire time. And it's that really that started to bring me in too. So
So you're ministering to the audience, but in a very real sense, you're ministering to you. And that's keeping you during those times. Had you guys hadn't met yet?
Not until her brother gave his life to God, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So that was that transition. Like not even a
comes
week
in
later.
right after that.
Just about the perfect time.
Yeah.
All right. Meanwhile,
Meanwhile,
back
yes.
in Ernie's world, we praise the Lord. Talk to me a little about, give me some flavor of your walk to the Lord, because at this point you're playing your guitar, you're working your way through school, you're holding a job, but there's no Jesus insert in your life.
No.
How did that come? Where did that come? When did that come?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold things. I think we didn't mention like when I went into middle school and whatnot, but I ended up in a mental institution, self-harm, suicidal thoughts and stuff. So, so it was out to the open. My family knew what was going on with me and how I was negatively coping, on using those devices. But so here I am in college, getting my life back together.
Now let me stop you, Ernie, for just a second, because we did kind of gloss over that.
Yeah.
You really, this whole adoption thing just was unsettled in your heart and in your mind.
Yeah.
There are some kids who roll with that. No big deal. Other kids, it does do some drama, some trauma in their life. You were one that you kind of felt this kind of deeply.
Yeah, and I think that's because there's other relationships in my family that also have suffered from no closure. So even I'm looking at adults that also have a strenuous relationship with their parents. So everywhere I looked, there was no peace and happiness. So here I am trying to find a solution and looking to the people that should give it to me, and it wasn't.
So you're thrust into a sort of dysfunctional situation, and no one's putting closure any place. So everybody's kind of left to just make it up as they go along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's no fault of their own, but as a young child looking for answers, I didn't find any, and it just kept kind of growing, and as I kept growing up too, just more questions and no answers.
Yeah.
You know?
In general, your relationship with your biological mother during your growth years, was that improving? Was it deteriorating? Was it existent, non-existent?
I mean, it was existent. I don't know if it was improving, but I definitely spent some summers with her, a couple weekends, that kind of stuff, and I spent some time with my brothers and my sister with her and that kind of stuff. But then it kind of came down to a little bit of contention with my stepmom and my biological mom, and they were just like, well, if you want to go over there, then just go, and it was kind of like a negative thing.
Okay.
So then I felt bad for being there, and then, that stress just grows and grows. So
And for a person trying to make their way through life, that added pressure, which you cannot resolve because it's not your fault.
Yeah,
exactly. You exist, you're here, and all the stuff is surrounding you.
Exactly.
So it's above you and beyond you. And
yeah,
you
it's so circumstantial. It's out of my reach.
Yeah. Okay. So we're back in college.
So I brought up the middle school thing because I started to slip back into those habits again. So I know I was coping, I was smoking, I was drinking, all that kind of thing. But I was going back to those Great Depression where I was like self-harming, where I was thinking about suicide again. So right there in college when I think I'm getting my life together, I started questioning things again, like where am I going, what is next, and kind of stuff. So I met Laura at her brother's pizzeria that he owns down in Southern California. Now, my best friend that I spent a lot of my homeless years with, he got a job right next door to this pizzeria. It's like literally the same building. And so I would get off in my classes, go wait for him to get out of work so I can spend the night at his house to go to class again in the morning, because I live 45 minutes away and stuff. But then there was a day when you were outside, it was like raining and kind of stuff.
It was sunny and raining on the same day.
Yeah.
So I thought that was unusual, so I went out to look at it.
Right. And then she comes out, and here's these two punk rock kids, with like chains and like patches everywhere, smoking cigarettes.
Give me the look, the presentation.
Yeah, just looking grungy, I guess, like we just came out of a garage band somewhere, you know what I mean? And
skeleton jewelry all over, and spiked hair.
Spiked hair,
Marilyn Manson t-shirt, all
I
that
think
kind of
it
stuff.
was
Your initial impression of my lord was what?
Of Laura, yeah. I just thought she was really pretty. She was a very beautiful woman. It's not something I saw in my local area, I guess, if that makes sense.
We know what you saw.
Yeah.
What did you see?
I'm biased.
Well, I mean, honestly, I thought he was pretty cute.
What? Did you really?
Yeah, but I mean, I had come back around now. Gave my life back to God and everything. So, that feeling can't be nurtured.
Can't be nurtured or indulged. Yeah.
Well, that's true, because you got some red flags that jump at you right away. Unequally yoked, yada yada, blah blah blah. He looks like a refugee from a whatever, and you're trying to come back to the Lord, singing for the Lord, serving the Lord. Yeah. So this is not something that can fly, kind of thing. So you met for the first day. Did you talk at all?
Yes,
I turned around and went back inside real quick.
Yeah, she went inside, and then I was like, well, I'm going to be here for a couple hours. I should go buy a pizza. So I'm going to go over there and talk to her. She has her CDs on the front table. And I'm like, oh, she's a musician.
And I knew he was going to come in, too. When I turned around and walked back, I was like, I know he's going to come in here. I saw it on his face.
Yeah. She could read me like a book, I guess. There's no way around it. But I was just like, and I did my spiel, like, oh, I'm an audio engineer. Let's work together. A musician. I'm an engineer. Let's make records and stuff. And, and she totally threw that in the trash, I'm sure.
He did give me his number, and I threw it away.
Yeah. Did you really?
Yeah. Because I was like, I can't go down this road. Right. So I was just like, no.
Right. Okay, thinking with the head, not the heart. Well done.
Exactly.
So obviously, from day one, there was a little something there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is your brother's pizzeria?
My brother's pizzeria, yeah.
Okay. And he was next door to
a smoke shop.
A
vape store. I don't know how you would. That's how I remember it.
For those who may be a little more adventist among us, describe what that is.
Sure, it's
Yeah.
well, they guise it as like a tobacco shop, but it's really made for people that use marijuana, or they have a bunch of other things there, party stuff, like, I don't know, I want to go into all of it, but
Yeah.
just stuff that is totally not for your health or for any good other than to
Yeah.
make yourself feel better for a time, you know.
Sort of self-anesthesis
Yeah.
kind of thing, going on.
Yeah.
So this is a very unlikely combination. When was the second time, the next time that you met?
So
Same day.
Same day. It was the same thing. So I think I sort of mentioned to you behind camera, but my best friend worked at the shop,
Right.
and her brother owned the pizzeria. So what happened is they met out back somewhere because it was his first day, and he just gave his life to the Lord, and they started talking for like 3 hours, and they just disappeared. So I was up front with you and Minda,
My brother's wife.
brother's wife, yeah, and we just started talking. We just had this conversation. I think I had, I don't even remember.
We ended up having a game night.
Yeah,
Because
that's right.
the guys were off talking in the back, my brother and his friend. And so we're like, okay, well, while we're waiting for them, let's play games. So we all got together and had a big game night.
Yeah, and we just
deal.
connected, and yeah.
Laura, give me some sense of, because we've touched on this a couple of times, your brother's conversion must have been radical and very real.
Yes.
Talk to me just a little bit about his coming to the Lord.
Yeah, so my brother, he also didn't really have any spiritual, because we weren't raised together at all. So I met him when he was about 22. And the first time I met him, he was just partying, drinking, smoking. He's been smoking since he was 15. And that was just his whole life. That's all he wanted to do. All he cared about was having fun. He met our family and realized we're like this crazy religious family he didn't want anything to do with.
Fanatical with it.
So he disappeared for, I don't know, 7-8 years. Didn't hear from him again. And that's when I really started praying for him, was all through those years. And then we got back in touch, and he ended up calling me one day saying that, everything was falling apart. His health was falling apart. All that smoking, drinking was taking its toll. And he needed help. And so I had just gone through a 10-day detox program. Super intense. So I flew out to his house and I put him through that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's a long story, but during those 10 days, he purged everything, smoking, drinking, meat, everything. And he ended up giving his life to God.
Praise God.
And I got to watch it all happen. And
Now, we praise the Lord that he saw enough of something in you to reach out to you when he was at his lowest point, and you were there for him.
yeah.
Yeah, praise the Lord. Now, and you can go as deep or as shallow in this as you want. How was he estranged from you for so many years that you didn't know him till you were?
He's my dad's son from a previous marriage. Yeah. I don't know why I didn't hear about him till later. Maybe I just don't remember, because it wasn't a secret or anything. I just don't recall really ever hearing about it until I was about 14. And my dream, I always wanted an older brother.
Yeah.
So I was really excited when I found out I had one. But people wonder, like, well, how is it possible you didn't know before? I really don't know. That's a blur.
Praise the Lord. Now, obviously, he got his life back together enough to own a small business. He owns a pizzeria.
Him and his wife together. Yeah.
And he got married. Excellent. So there you are outside, and here comes Mr. Man. Okay. So you're having a game night.
Yes.
And that was the rest of that night.
Right.
Now, your brother is witnessing to his friend. Is that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fervently too, because he was
Yeah.
on fire. When he gave his life to God, he was just telling everybody. So, yeah.
Okay. Sounds like he was all in.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Totally.
Praise God.
200% in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How was your friend taking this? Because some people, you can get witness to it, and others kind of resist it. Was he going with this or not?
Yeah, very interesting question. And the true answer to it is he wasn't very affected by it. He definitely had the interest in, and it's ironic because his mom actually worked at an Adventist hospital. So they were surrounded by Adventists, and they knew they know things. I didn't know things. I didn't know anything about Adventists. I didn't at all, like at zero. So I think during that conversation, he just kind of passively agreed and just was respectful about it and whatnot. But as soon as he left, it was like, well, that was nice, but who cares?
Yeah, not
kind of
for
thing.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did this trickle down to you?
Well, college life, I was going to class every day. I was spending a lot of time there, after classes and whatnot. So weeks go by, and I'm building a relationship with you and Minda and Jeremy. And then it was like, well, Laura wanted to invite me to a concert, a Sabbath morning and a Saturday morning. And I decided I think it'd be worth the while. So I took some time off of work and went. And it was like one concert to the next, to the next, to the next, and then to a evangelistic series.
Yeah. Okay.
And I was like, what is this about? And kind of stuff. Yeah, there's a big story there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because did you suddenly develop a really, really strong craving for pizza? Or were you was something happening? Were you seeing something? Because you're not, as far as Laura's concerned, you're not eligible. You're not there yet.
Right.
And I sat him down and had to talk about that. Right at the start, we sat down and I was like, you know what, I love being friends. I mean, we hit it off. We were like inseparable from day one. But I was like, but we cannot be more than just friends because different beliefs, different lifestyles. And he accepted that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I respected that. And I think the question you're alluding to is like what kept bringing me back.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do, and then there's a bias of it, that you are a really beautiful woman, and that was one part of it. But there was just other things, the principles in her lives were very interesting and how she stuck to them. So like Sabbath, so like the way she dressed, like all these things she was so different from every other individual that I've spent time with in my life. I just wanted to know more and know more. And then, of course, her music was wonderful, and I wanted to help her out. She was touring in the area, and sometimes her brother couldn't drive you places, so I would help her get there and do this and that kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. You told her that, and obviously you respected what you saw in her.
Right.
And there is something to be said for standing up for Jesus.
Yeah.
He says, if you stand up for me, I will stand up for you. So that bargain is made. So you're seeing this, and it is not off-putting.
No, it was, I don't know, it was almost peaceful, it's almost inviting, it just, it's hard to say because I spent some years on the street. Like when people respect you and you respect them, there's a bond there that is just very different than every other passive, relationship you would have or conversation. So that was something that was growing within that. Yeah.
So this is an easy relationship. It's not stressful, it's not tight. You're kind of just flowing together. It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
She's put down the boundaries.
Sure.
You say, I respect those. But it's hard to spend a lot of time in a person's presence,
Right.
particularly when you have some stuff in common,
Sure.
and kind of to remain that objectivity. So obviously you're starting to get pulled in a little bit.
Yes.
You go to a concert, you heard her sing, impressive.
Yes, very impressive. Very blown away by it. And those were kind of your entry points to try to minister to me.
Yeah.
And I was still just sort of not ready for it. Like I know the first time you were trying to give me a Bible.
Trying to give him a Bible.
Yeah, I was just like, no, thank you. I don't want a Bible. I'm not ready for this, whatnot. And I mean, you can sort of see it coming because it's in her lifestyle. I knew she was going to bring it up eventually. But even then, I was just like hoping that it didn't happen.
It did, yeah. When he refused your Bible, how dare he? When he refused it, how did it make you feel?
I was sad because I actually thought that there might be some interest there. I was really hoping. So then when he was just like, no, that's not for me, I was like, it's really sad.
Brokenhearted.
Now I'm going to ask you to reveal something in your heart, and you don't have to if you don't want to. Were you hoping, if I could get this guy over, maybe we can do something, some kind of life thing. If I can win him for the Lord, and that's not necessarily an evil thing.
Sure.
If I can get him in the fold, then he becomes eligible.
Right.
Was that ever in the cards for you?
Well, I remember not that long after meeting him, I did call my mom, and I was like, Mom, I found the perfect man. He's perfect. There's just one thing missing.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's a pretty big thing.
Yeah, believe it.
But I mean, I know the danger too of of what do they call it?
Like entertaining the thought that you can convert somebody?
There's a word for evangelism within a relationship. I don't remember the term, but trying to convert and date somebody at the same time. There's a big danger in doing that, and I did not want to fall into that.
Very much so.
So yes, I did like him, and yes, I thought he was pretty perfect, but it was just had to be just no. We just can't even think like that. But I was hoping, we'd be friends.
Right.
Yeah, and
we know what her unspoken agenda is. Were you entertaining any thoughts like that, or were you really trying to keep it kind of straight up and down?
I mean, I think I was longing for a relationship for sure because I went through a really bad one before I met Laura. And actually, ironically, Laura's the one that kind of helped me get over that hump of that emotional baggage from that relationship. before we ever started dating or any of that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I was looking for that, and I totally respected her principles, but I couldn't understand it to the sense that I knew she sort of wanted it too, and she was just saying no to say no, and I was kind of caught in the middle. So I actually found myself kind of withdrawing for a little while, just to kind of protect myself, because I didn't want to fall back into another bad relationship. You know, I didn't want to get hurt again. You know, that kind of thing. And that didn't last very long.
Well,
but
you finally decided that you were going to stop coming around.
Yeah, and for like 2 weeks I kind of disappeared and whatnot. But then some other things, you needed some help for some concerts, and I was in the air, my friend's still at the store, so I was still nearby. And it just kind of grew from there. But that's when that evangelistic series was brought up. She didn't have a ride, and I needed to take her because I was there. And yeah.
So you were ministering. You were part of you were singing.
I was invited to sing for it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was a revival Reformation series. Yeah.
Who was preaching?
Jeremiah Davis.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. So you went.
So I went, yes. And I think you wanted to sing and leave because you only had one song.
They told me, because I was really busy that day, and so they said, well, just come sing the opening song and then you can leave. So that was my plan. So I said, hey, can you just drive me over there? We'll just sing the song and be done. And he was actually right before this planning on stopping hanging out with me because he just decided it wasn't for him. And since he couldn't be the person that he believed that I needed, you know, the spiritual person, he was just going to leave. But when we walked in that church, it was like I got slapped in the face. This thought, like, really? You're going to bring him here and leave? That's not going to happen.
It's funny. It's funny when
like,
you didn't say
way to go,
it.
God. You know, Praise the Lord. You know, let me pay you this compliment, Ernie, because you didn't intend, and I'm going to use a very kind of street term, to mess over her life. You know what I'm saying?
No.
It was, let me just bow out. I don't want to pull her out of the herd.
Right.
I don't want to take her away from what is obviously a great part of her life. Why would I step in and mess that up? So let me just withdraw. Yeah.
That's exactly what he did.
Yeah. Did you articulate that to her? Did you have that discussion with her?
I think we talked about it, but it was still
I could see
kind
it,
of like
though.
emotionally driven stuff.
That
so.
was all the things that I respected that about him. That you know, I really admired that because, you know, I dealt with like a lot of like more pushy guys.
Yeah.
And I really didn't like that at all.
Right.
So the fact that he wasn't like that was I really respected that about him.
Yeah. That I give you great kudos for that.
Thank you.
No, I really do. So you go to the meeting. You stayed all night.
Yes, I decided to stay. She didn't bring up that question to me.
I did say, do you want to stay? I did say that.
And then my answer was, we need to stay. You can't come to a series at a church somewhere and then just leave. Like, isn't that disrespectful or something? You know, that's what I was thinking.
We did talk about it ahead of time, but yeah.
Yeah, but once I got in there and he was preaching, he was greeting people, he was very friendly, and people there were engaged, you know, and whatnot, and I was just like, no, we have to stay. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
So we stayed.
Yeah.
And we stayed every time I took you there.
Was
you
that
know,
the
for
first
weeks.
time you heard like a full gospel presentation, a full sermon kind of deal, or had
Sure.
you kind of that was it?
Yeah, I would say that's the first start to finish full gospel presentation. Because I've been to churches a handful of times. My great grandmother's Catholic. My older brother played in the band at I think a Sunday church somewhere and stuff. So I was exposed to it, you know, throughout the youth. But it wasn't like the pastor's up there or the evangelist is up there. You just like preaching from the word. Like that was the first time for sure. Yes.
Yeah. Did it affect you differently than the other gospel presentations you had heard?
Oh yeah. Because my first experience was with they brought up a musician on the pulpit and then just started blasting this guy. So then I was like, I like this guy's music. I like this musician. I like his music and whatnot. And they were just saying all these terrible negative things about it. And I was just like, you guys are Christians. You're supposed to be loving, kind. Why do I hear? I'm seeing this like, hypocrisy kind of, you know, as a young kid. And then just stuff in the Catholic Church I still didn't understand. It was like the quiet ambiance things and all that, so I just kind of left that alone.
Right.
But outside of that, that was the first like, real initial entry into like a church service that is a church service, you know what I mean?
Oh, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
So obviously you came back again and again.
Yeah, because it was 2 weeks, right?
I don't remember how long
I think it was like a 2-week series or something. It was every day, you know, every day for like 2 weeks.
What was beginning to happen in your heart at this point?
At that point, I think I was coming off, I think I mentioned it earlier, I was coming off of that slipping into the depression again, self-harm.
Yeah.
So here I'm at church, and this preacher is talking about all these interesting things. And he was talking about like the health reform, and he was talking about the American diet. Well, at the time I worked at a fast food restaurant, and all the food that he brought up was what I cooked at my fast food restaurant. So, and it was just like coincidental every time there's like all these little things that kept happening. Like Laura would send me Bible verses of the day, and it'd be something I saw just passively or in a conversation with somebody or on the radio as I'm flipping through something. And it was like all these coincidences just started adding up. So here I am sitting in a church, listening to this pastor, and he brings up the sanctuary. And he's talking about the sacrificial system, this intercessor, Jesus our intercessor and whatnot. And like all those contemporary, the way I put it is Christian bumper sticker religious ideas just start going out the window. And I want to know more. Because obviously I have something wrong. I don't see the full picture.
Right.
So I wanted to know more,
Since it is very difficult to keep life compartmentalized, you're drawing closer to the Lord. Your heart is open. You're not fighting this.
No, not totally, no.
Yeah. Are you beginning to feel better about the woman that's dragging you to these meetings, kicking and screaming every night?
Right. Well, I guess. But I didn't feel any residual resistance towards you at all. Like I didn't think she was thinking as me as a project or anything like that. I never got that sense. And
the decision to go back to the meetings was yours after the first night.
Yeah, after the first night, for sure.
Good deal.
Yeah. So there's no
that
resistance.
took the burden off of her because you're kind of on your own momentum now.
Yeah, there was no resistance about it. I wanted to go. I wanted to be there. I wanted to learn. And if for anything, just to understand the Bible that much more, and I could step away from it still if I wanted to, what have you. But I had a better knowledge of it, and it was because it's in the Word. It was all explained to me. It wasn't like this theoretical knowledge. You know what I mean? It was very practical. Yeah.
Was it at the end of these meetings that you gave your heart to the Lord, or during
No. There's a little bit more time went through that. So after those meetings, after learning about the sanctuary and the Daniel message and all the prophecies and stuff, I had lots of questions and I wanted to know more. And Loris invited. I think your parents actually sent you out a Bible study, right? Like a big old folder of Bible studies. And we started with we did a handful of them, and then your brother was doing Bible studies at his restaurant. So here I am, spending time at the pizzeria with all these people doing spiritual things while my friend's still working. And I would go to him, after class, and that went on for a good year or so.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of got to a point where we knew we were inseparable, and I was doing a lot of things. I was still putting myself through college and whatnot and working. But the time comes, I need to meet her parents.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you did accept that Bible, all right? Sooner or later, you picked that Bible that you refused initially. You did accept the Bible.
I did it. Yeah.
Yeah, praise the Lord. Okay.
Got it now.
I got it now. Yeah, I still have it.
You got so many good Bible. I don't want to lose that Bible.
Right.
Yeah. So you had to meet her parents. I guess you had been sending home some sort of word about this guy.
Oh, I talked about him a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But the reason he came home with me is because he was going to go through that same 10-day detox. I told him I'd put him through it. So that's why we went to my house.
So it was a dual thing. We had to meet her parents, and she wanted to put me on this detox.
Walk me through the experience of meeting her parents for the first time.
Oh my, yes. Probably the most nervous I think I've ever been. I guess. If I had to say, it was kind of nerve-wracking. But I showed up as myself. I was very transparent about it. I wasn't going to be something that I wasn't. I was a punk rock kid that lived a gutter life and did a lot of bad things, and was still respectful to adults and and seniors
now
and that kind of thing.
As yourself though, but I'm sure your dress had changed somewhat.
No.
No. Really?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Exactly the same. The day she met me was the same way I showed up.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I mean by myself. It'd be real easy for me to dress up and nice and cut my hair, and I didn't. That's not me. I'm not going to do that to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you came in as you.
Yep.
Here I am.
Here I am.
What was your parents' response? And you probably didn't get this information until afterward.
Yeah.
But what was their reaction?
I mean, they already had a pretty good idea of what to expect because I had told them everything. Their first initial reaction when I met him was, "Oh no." This isn't gonna be good.
Oh my.
But as soon as they met him, they liked him pretty quick because they saw past the exterior, and they could tell there's something special here, and so it went pretty well.
Yeah, very accepting.
So you gave him the history. You didn't try to sugarcoat or hide anything.
Did not. And then we just went into the detox just that day. The day after. We started cleansing. You're drinking charcoal pulpuses and seawater and lemon juice and parasite killer and stuff, and it's gross and it's terrible.
I've been through that detox.
Yeah, it's awful.
You spend a lot of time in the solitary room.
Yes, you do. Man, but it was all worth it. Yeah,
you can drop 10, 15 pounds in a weekend, man.
Yeah.
That's strenuous stuff.
Yeah, and it was real fast.
I guess since you were there for a detox, they must have known that your heart's in the right place.
Right,
I mean,
right.
he's here to get a detox,
Yeah.
for goodness sake.
And I wanted it, yeah.
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 I wanted to kind of restart. I wanted to know what it was going to feel like to feel better or what have you.
Yeah.
And
Did you like them, her folks?
yeah, I definitely like them. I think your dad's still a little abrasive, you know, when I first met him, but I've grown to love it, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, as soon as that detox started happening, I started to unload that emotional baggage. And I think it was all that pent up, all the stuff I was doing, the drinking, the smoking, and the tobacco, and all that kind of stuff, like that was starting to just fall off, and I was starting to feel better, and I was thinking clearly, and like all that bad relationship that I was in before, like I finally let go of that, and all the other like angry things that I had in my life about being adopted, that started to kind of flow away. And what it really was is I was in the atmosphere of a Christian home you guys were having worship every morning, they were praying, and I was there just soaking up all the information that they had there. And here I am just finally feeling the best I've ever felt and feeling relieved of everything. And I knew it was because God was assisting me in this. And, you know, the things that we did with that detox were all, you know, just like biblically based. There wasn't anything just new or anything, you know what I mean? So here I am in this room just pouring my heart out to God for the first time, probably the very first time, like truly, you know, utterly trying to give myself over to it. And it was because of, I can think clearly, because I wasn't drinking, I wasn't smoking, I wasn't high anymore, you know what I mean?
So you could feel a real difference going through this detox.
Yes.
You could actually feel, you felt better.
I felt physically better, I felt emotionally better, I had very vivid, terrible nightmares, but then I would wake up relieved. It was such a euphoric experience. I don't even know how to really explain it, but you know, 21 years of just eating terribly and smoking and drinking and all that, and here I am just clear-minded finally, you know, at the right hand of the gospel of the health message, you know what I mean? And that's what truly was reaching me, and that's when I gave my life to God, was in those 10 days. I think it was like the 5th day in when I started to finally feel better, because I was feeling really bad. And I just prayed and prayed and prayed, and I gave my heart to God, and I was scared about everything, what's next, you know, my past and what's in the future, and what's this mean for us, like me and Laura, is you just lead me down this road to maybe put me somewhere else, I don't know, but I'm just gonna give it into your hands and just, you take over, you know?
When your body is freeing itself from all of that gunk,
Yes.
it's traumatic to the body.
Oh yeah.
and you do feel bad for a while because your body's losing a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
You're watching this. What's going on in your heart? This has got to be just sort of blowing your mind that he's coming along and he's giving his heart to the Lord in this 10-day period. A lot of stuff is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was amazing to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, I just seen it almost the same exact thing with my brother.
With your brother, right.
And then
right.
now again, I mean, it was amazing. I was just seeing like God just working right in front of me, like changing everything. It was amazing.
You're wondering, is she just taking me through this as kind of a project, or is this really the beginning of something that's going to be long-term and permanent for us? Had you satisfied yourself with that in your mind, or is this still up in the air as to where do we go from here?
Right. So I think my mindset wasn't anything to do with our relationship when I went into that detox at all. It was more the fact that she was willing to help me. She wanted to make me feel better, and I wanted to give her the chance to do that. And I think you explained it a handful of times, and she knew I was smoking tobacco a lot and cigarettes and stuff. So she was just like, this will help you quit and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm all for it. You know, I quit smoking one time before, but I picked it up again. You know, 5 years later, I'm still smoking. You know, and I was like, well, it wouldn't hurt to feel better, right? You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just kind of went with the flow with it, and it led me, you know, to God, really, you know, and giving my life to God. And I had no preconceived ideas that that's what was going to happen, or I was ready for that to happen.
Right. When you went through this detox, was that the last time you dealt with cigarettes? Did you get the victory during that time?
Oh yeah.
So that was it?
That was it, yeah. No more smoking, no more marijuana, no more drinking, no more meat, and I don't do dairy at all. I mean, now I get sick because if I eat dairy, I get sick, but everything, cold turkey, 10 days, completely 360. Or 180. Not 360.
It's back in the same direction.
Right.
And our time, looking at the time, is getting away from us. I gotta move you along because you're giving your heart to the Lord.
Yes.
When were you baptized?
That was like 2 years after that moment, a year and a half maybe after that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It was at a camp, I think it was a camp meeting somewhere in Lake Paris.
Yeah.
It's kind of a blur now because so much has happened.
Okay. In whose mind did the idea of marriage appear first in her mind? yeah, I kind of had to answer to that question.
Definitely her mind.
yeah. But usually when couples are moving in that direction, if one is a little ahead, the other's not that far behind.
Right.
Yeah. I wasn't that far behind. I wasn't
Not too far.
Yeah, I didn't see marriage as like a terrible thing either. Like it just felt like that's how it should be. You meet one person and you're just with them forever. Like so, it worked for me.
So it's kind of a natural progression kind of a deal.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
you get baptized. Now we got to work out what we're going to do with our lives.
Exactly.
Walk me through that.
So after we get baptized, after I graduated college, I moved up to your parents' house, and I spent a whole year there.
Oh, wow.
They had a 3-story house. We're all separated, that kind of thing. But in that year, we put together what we needed to do. I went to school for audio engineering. She needed an audio engineer, so we built a studio.
Yeah, we built our own studio, our own vocal booth, everything from scratch, YouTube videos,
Excellent.
And we just started making albums.
fundraise to
after
get
albums,
equipment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that year, I taught myself everything I needed to know for audio. I taught myself video production and photography, and that's just what I did for that full year. And they housed me, they took care of me. I mean, here I am, just graduated, didn't have a job, and yet, progressively, I was learning all this wonderful things that assist us now.
Now you're not married yet.
Not at this,
Not at this
no.
point,
Not
no.
this point. Okay, so a year passes.
Right.
And you're doing a lot of stuff together. So it's obvious your lives are knit. This is
Yes.
not rocket science. You're gonna be together.
Right.
When did the question get popped, and what was the answer?
She needed to do a tour.
Yeah, I had a 7-month tour coming up.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I mean, we'd already talked about it and everything. We knew it was going to happen, but then I was like, you know what? We've got this 7-month tour. It's either we get married, we go together, which would be ideal because he was the second half at this point, audio engineer.
Yeah.
Or you stay and I'll go for 7 months. And I think we had 3 months
To figure it
before
out.
the tour started. And so we all got together. With my family, even my brother, over Skype, everything, and we decided we're going to pray about this for 10 days. And if after those 10 days we all come together and we have peace with this, we'll move forward
We'll
with
move
it.
forward, yeah.
Excellent.
And we did.
And we all did. We all prayed, and that following Sabbath, right after the sun went down, we talked about it, decided to get married. It's as simple as that.
Praise the Lord. And that was how long ago?
It's,
4 years in April.
yeah, it'll be 4 years in April.
Amen. And so the ministries are blended. Your talents certainly are simpatico one with the other.
Sure.
You're an audio engineer. You're a singer. Hey, that works.
Voila.
Do you do any instrument playing on any of her projects?
There's been a handful of things that I've done for sure. I think in the engineering world, I do a lot of like the special effects things. So if you hear a cymbal in the background or some wind chimes or something very just not maybe instrument oriented, I probably did that.
We've started doing songs together because he plays the guitar.
Yeah.
We've started integrating songs together in concerts and things like that.
But I was conformed to just be in the background for that first couple years, and it hasn't been until the last couple years that I've decided to be a little bit more outspoken out front.
Do you write music also, Laura?
Yeah, I'm starting to get more and more into that. Yeah, our next album is going to be an original.
Be it all
album.
Oh,
originals,
great!
yeah.
That's a thrill. That's a thrill. Yeah. So you're out on the road. You're working together.
Yes.
God is obviously blessing your ministry. How do you pick songs?
The lyrical content is really important. I don't want to do just generic songs. It needs to have a deep meaning, especially if it has a personal deep meaning. Those are my favorites. But
I'm not giving you a lot of time to wrestle with this, but I'm going to throw it at you. What is the difference between performance and ministry? Is there an intersection of the two? And if so, where? And it almost takes as long to ask the question as it is to get the answer. But does performance ever impact ministry? Does ministry ever impact performance? Is there ever an aspect of ministry that is performance? Are we asked to give our best performance and let God turn it into ministry? Where's the intersection of performance and ministry in your mind?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just to always be real and genuine. Like I mean, sure you have bad days and maybe you don't feel like getting up and singing, but it has to be a genuine, like when I sing a song, I get, you can't please everybody no matter what you do. So I get critiques all the time, like, oh, you move your hands in too showy a way, or all these different things, and I'm like, or it's too practiced. I'm like, it's not practice at all. What you see is what I'm feeling.
Yes.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Well,
kind of
what I'm
tough.
heading, What's your part in ministry? When I say performance, isn't your job to give the best performance?
Right.
And I'm using performance in a really broad sense, because you've got to practice, you've got to rehearse, you've
Right.
got to put in the work so that the Lord can use your best and then turn that into ministry.
Right.
But if you don't put in the work, then you're not giving God your best. That's illegitimate. That's
Right,
kind
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy, you have another hour? Because
I'm
that's a
giving it
whole
to you.
story
That's
in
it, yeah,
itself.
yeah.
I mean, that's.
Oh, man.
I mean, I could give you so many experiences where, like, I've had times where I didn't even have a voice. I mean, I couldn't even talk. And I will still show up for that concert. I will do everything in my part, even though I'm shaking in my boots, because I literally can't say a word. And what I've learned is that if I will go that far and do what I can, God gives me my voice back. You know, I take care of it. I try to do everything I can, but some things happen where you just can't do anything about it. And He always makes up that difference.
Praise God.
And we'd be here for hours if I told you stories about that.
Yes, very true.
In our time, I'm looking at the clock, we got 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
Yeah.
Answer this question for me, and you both can weigh in on this. God has brought us together. We are in ministry to do what? Why are we together? Why are we working for the Lord? What does God want from us, and what are we willing to give Him?
Right. Super deep. I think we're willing to give Him everything. I think what we've been finding in our ministry as we've grown, you know, as adults and as a married couple, we're realizing the necessity of teaching others to do what we do so that they bless others, so they can also draw. I was drawn in by music. You know, I was drawn in by the health message. And here we are as a music ministry trying to teach other people. And we've mentored a handful of music ministries, and they started. And now they're out teaching people and bringing them in. And like Laura was saying, like God takes up that difference. He'll fix, you know, all the problems or what have you. And to be intentional about the music that you pick and how you sing and all those things, it's for the benefit of others. You know, the first love that I found is coming into the church, coming into Christ. I want to give back to people, and whether they be non-believers or even believers, because I know sometimes we fall away. And if you can come back to that first love, then we're unstoppable, you know? Yeah. I don't know if you want to say.
That's good.
And we praise the Lord for that. You know, we've got just a minute, and I wanted to just encourage you. I hope that you've heard something from these two. They are lovely, good-looking young people who are giving their lives and their time and their talent to the Lord, and the Lord is using them and blessing them. But more than that, He is blessing others through them. Each of them has very, very different backgrounds. They come from very diverse circumstances, but what has brought them together is their love of Christ and their desire to serve Jesus. And it is that desire to serve Jesus that keeps them. The smile that you see on their face is Christ in their lives. I want you to remember them in prayer. Keep praying for them as they serve the Lord. We know that God is going to bless them, and we trust that this presentation has been a blessing to you. Bye-bye for now, and God bless.